what I'm getting at is you can have your own personal beliefs. Teachers, students, parents, they can come in, they can have their own political, religious, theological beliefs that they have personally, but they are using school resources like the school website as a political platform. That's my issue. That's my issue with this.
But the more nefarious undergirthing of it is a neo-Marxist, you even kind of said it, religion, creating a divisive nature in our schools that ultimately breaks down relations between different ethnicities, different genders, different sexual orientations, and that I fundamentally, on a very fundamental level, is what I think is a scary thing about it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua Solano, and welcome to the Minnesota Uncensored podcast, where we take a really local view at very specific and controversial issues happening in our neck of the woods. Today, I have with me Tyler Turner, a resident of Lakeville, who's here to talk to me about an issue that personally I don't know much about, and I'm really looking forward to learning not only his point of view, but a lot of the details and why this is a specific issue for our district and our schools. Tyler?
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, just to explain who I am exactly, I work for communications committee for Senate District 57. I also have been helping a lot with regards to school board stuff. My wife and a good friend of hers started a Patriots Mom group, which is specifically looking into issues that are going on with school board and what exactly is happening, what exactly is being taught, and going to school board meetings and letting their voices be known.
Good. Awesome. Yeah, I think that kind of goes right into what we wanted to talk about.
Yep.
Today we'll be covering an issue specifically that you encountered at the last school board meeting. And when you approached me about this issue, I was really interested because, one, I'm not well versed, like I said, in school board issues. To be frank, I am probably like many Minnesotans, especially young Minnesotans that don't have children, probably don't know a lot about school board. So if you could just give me a little take on the importance of school board and, the purpose and why they're there.
Well, quick definition of what the school board provides is the school board as a whole provides leadership in the community and on behalf of the school district. The school board makes sure the district is conducting its business in a fair, respectful, legal, and responsible manner. So the school board, you could kind of say, is an overseer for the community. They're kind of the liaison to the community, what exactly the district is doing, seeing the issues and responding, making sure everything's fair, and doing everything in a respectful, legal, and most importantly, a very responsible manner.
Right. Okay. Well, and so I think that that's pretty important because, one, I don't know much about school board. And so we have these individuals that I probably don't know their names. Actually, I can't name a single one of them, that control our curriculum, our spending, policy allocations. I don't know if they have a hand in, teachers' policies, school policy, and everything like that when it comes to operations, but it's a really big deal. And the reason why we're here is because of a specific school board member that kind of caused some pretty controversial issues at the last school board meeting. I wasn't there. Can you just kind of explain a little bit about that incident that happened at the last school board meeting?
Yeah, so specifically, several mothers, grandmas, mostly females were the ones speaking. Males can speak too, but most females were speaking on behalf of some issues that are causing kind of a concern. It's causing kind of an uptick of rhetoric within the nationally. This is kind of almost like a cultural thing nationally in the state and specifically in District 196 that caused them to go to the school board. And they spoke on such issues such as critical race theory, comprehensive sex education, rewriting history. That was the testimonies were mostly on behalf of those concerns. And there was some very passionate, emotional speeches of individuals really having, like, they were concerned about what's happening. They believe that a lot of these issues have really gotten into the school district. And I had a problem with the response of one of the school board members, Art Colson. He's been a school board member for 13 years. And after the speeches were all done, he immediately said, it's not true. Such things are not happening in our schools. And they're kind of using, quote unquote, Fox News talking points. Okay. And when you go back to the definition of a school board, it's supposed to be conducting its business in a fair, respectful, legal, and responsible manner. How is he, as a school board member, listening to his community, responding in a fair, respectful, and a responsible manner to say everything they say is not true, which was not accurate, and to then use kind of a red herring and their Fox News talking points? Okay. I thought it was concerning, and I thought it was an abdication of duty for Art Colson.
Interesting. Yeah, and from what you told me, this group of mothers and concerned parents were incredibly respectful, just voicing their opinions. And correct me if I am wrong, but school board members are not partisan, correct? They get elected as nonpartisan individuals, just like a city council person here in Apple Valley or a mayorship. And that kind of political rhetoric, even during a council meeting or a school board meeting, should be put on the back burner due to the topic at hand, and just being respectful in responses back to concerned citizens. It's not responsible of that school board member to go back and tell these individuals that they're crazy, that they're wrong. And that is derelict to duty, I think, and it shows his colors on where he stands on a lot of issues. And I would be concerned about some of the other issues that he probably believes and will be more careful, hopefully more careful about how he voices his opinions after this incident, because he is supposed to be that nonpartisan individual.
How is he an objective? How is he a nonpartisan? How is he a biased observer of what's happening when he responds in that manner? You can go on his social media. He's very outspoken in his disdain for Trump supporters, his mocking of the January 6th Capitol riots. He makes his position known politically, and the fact that he responded so quickly and so abruptly, so condescendingly, in a patronizing manner, I think I would say as much as he's someone that should not be on the school board. Now, obviously, I can't remove him, but for someone that is supposed to fit into this definition of fair, respectful, responsible, he doesn't fit it. He's not that. He is partisan, and that is problematic. And how would he have a problem with some of the issues being brought up when he more than likely, I could conclude, agrees with it? So, yeah, right. So just to add on to that point.
Oh, absolutely. And so I want to go back to something that you mentioned before in kind of your opening monologue there about critical race theory. I don't know much about this topic, so I'm really, really interested, actually. Politically, I can kind of be, very center right on a lot of different issues, but this is one that I haven't educated myself on. So I'd love to hear your point of view. Just kind of, what is critical race theory?
Critical race theory is kind of founded in the concept of critical theory. Its origin actually was a pupil, it was someone that was from the neo-Marxist school in Italy. He then had a bunch of pupils. They transported over to Frankfurt, Germany. During the late 20s, early 30s, there was a little rise of fascism and Nazism, and obviously the left was not very popular there. So they ended up fleeing to America. They went to Columbia University, and their ideas kind of expounded from there. If I could explain it in like a very layman's term, critical
Yeah.
theory basically thinks you should deconstruct systems because, for instance, you hear America is systematically racist. So America had racism in its past. There was racist individuals. There was racist institutions. Therefore, critical theory believes you need to break down those institutions because inherently they're racist. But it's very broad. So it goes as far in when it comes to more of a fundamental level of critical theory, and on a very on a very fundamental level, it means you need to break down every system because at some point it was racist. Therefore, it has to be broken down. So your judicial system, your education system, your healthcare system, your religious the religious communities,
Right.
the communities themselves, the cities, everything needs to be broken down because of policing. I could go on because inherently it's racist, and critical theory says you need to break it down because of that. And if you deconstruct something, you have to then obviously reconstruct it into something else. What I would be concerned about, very concerned about, is if you're deconstructing all of America, you're deconstructing a society that was founded actually on equality, was found as the most equal, the most equitable, most charitable, most benevolent nation in human history. And you're breaking down all of its systems because of something that was bad. Racism, I think we can all agree, racism is a horrible thing. And slavery was atrocity. And one of the greatest things we did was abolish slavery.
Absolutely.
But to break down the fundamental institutions and key systems in a society due to the fact that racism has existed is only going to create a much worse problem. And what I see as very dangerous right now is it feels as if the state is the one promoting this. So basically you have state-funded propaganda. You have state-funded racism or state-funded reverse racism. And I don't think any of us, that if we look at this objectively, any of us, probably most of you listening to the podcast, you and I, think that inherently is good for our society.
Right. And that's the thing too. And every single generation, there has been major issues in this country that we've had to tackle, from coming from just recently, South American immigrants coming over, the racism and the attacks that they face, to skipping down to the Japanese during World War II, the Irish when they came over, and now we're facing it today with Judaism and Jews in New York City. You're seeing it on the streets. And it's not good, no matter what you think politically. So we know inherently that racism and attacks on individuals for their religion, their creed, the color of their skin is wrong. But that's not what critical race theory is what you're telling me. That's not denying and saying that, oh, yes, we know that's wrong. It takes it a complete step further. And you're telling me that it breaks down this great American experiment that we have. And that's why America is so great, is because we can overcome issues greater than any other nation in this world. We evolve as a country and as a people. We learn from our mistakes because we are human and we make plenty of them. But critical race theory it breaks down the institutions at the very core and corrupts individuals on the inside, is what you're telling me from your point of view. So going into this, with critical race theory in District 196, the groups that are worried about it, concerned, advocating against it, and yourself, I know that your wife, you said, is very involved. What are some examples of critical race theory in the schools, and why are they so detrimental?
The examples are actually many. First of all, I have several examples here in front of me. A couple things I see on here, and then I'll approach that. I see articles on the District 196 website, 10 ways well-meaning white teachers bring racism into our schools. That's an article. 21 racial microaggressions you hear on a daily basis. Climbing the white escalator. White fragility. It's not South. Here is how everyone can resist, quote unquote, white supremacy. A glide to allyship. Racial contract is killing us. The 1619 Project, it promotes the 1619 Project over 1776. So that's another nuance about critical race theory. It basically thinks you need to rewrite history, that we're not telling history from the perspective of other people, that the history that we have of America is not good enough. The founding from Christopher Columbus to the Revolutionary War, that's not sufficient for telling our real history. They also, a document that they had, let me see if this pulls up, and it doesn't seem to be pulling up, but it was immediately after. It was like a call for equity in District 196. It was to denounce the death of George Floyd. I think we all admit the death of George Floyd was tragic.
Absolutely.
It was the death of a human life. But then they were saying stuff to the extent of, and it's not opening, of course, you know how life goes, but it said something to the extent of addressing racism, addressing prejudice within our district. It called the district to address it. It called the district to seek out racial justice. That in and of itself doesn't make any sense. They are supposed to be purveyors of information, teaching our kids. They are not supposed to be one acting on behalf of an equity group to enforce equity. And actually, that brings up another key point. You hear equity a lot. And equity is very different than equality. Equality is a belief that we're all equal under the law, that we all should have an equal opportunity, and that we all have the equal chance to live life, liberty, and happiness. Equity believes that it needs to be enforced by kind of a central planning of a school board, of a city council, of a state, of the Fed. And equity, why it's dangerous, it means someone has to take from someone else and they have to give it to someone else because they're saying things are not fair. They are oppressed in our society. Once again, if you hear a lot of these words like oppress, oppressor, white supremacy, all of these are very much tenets of the philosopher Karl Marx. And he believed that there was always this downtrodden peasant that had to rise up and had to knock down the bourgeois, the aristocratic state of society. And every time that Karl Marx's philosophies have been implemented into societies, you've had Soviet Russia, obviously 50 million, some people died under the Joseph Stalin regime. You had Mao Zedong's rise in Red China, 70 million died. Fidel Castro in Cuba, and most recently Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. So it's never been successful because ultimately government will have to enforce equity. It will cause conflict. It will cause division. And ultimately it will deconstruct a society, but it will ultimately break it down. And I've never seen it implemented where it's successful for very many people, maybe the top 2%.
Okay. Yeah, so you touched on a lot of about why we should be concerned with critical race theory at its very core and where it comes from in the history. The school board member said that this is not happening in our schools whatsoever. It's not going on. We don't believe it. And you bring up a lot of the history, which I think is great because I'm a history buff, and learning about the origins of things like this are very interesting to me because I previously did not know anything about it. But when it comes to critical race theory in operation in our schools, he's saying it doesn't happen. It's never happened. And you're telling me that it does happen. Was there a specific incident that caused issues between students, parents, educators in District 186?
Okay, so to touch back, because I did kind of veer off a little bit. So District 196 encourages the battle for equity and for inclusion. So it encourages it. For one, it encourages it. Second, they obviously have the materials accessible that says there is whiteness, there is white supremacy. We are founded on whiteness. That's number two. Number three, yes, there's been a couple instances that I've seen firsthand or heard of firsthand. Rosemont civics teacher, he took his class on a white privilege field trip to show them their quote unquote white privilege. The same teacher asked a question on a history test. He said, it's true or false. So this is a right or wrong answer. and this is where the scariness of possible indoctrination really it becomes real. He said, was America's founding systematically racist? Well, in his opinion, because if you see his past, taking kids on white privilege trip, you see social media, he's a strong supporter of such very far left candidates. He's a big Black Lives Matter supporter. He wears their apparel in school. He wears their bracelets. He's a football coach at Rosemont High School. Therefore, he believes it is. Therefore, for you to answer the right question, you have to answer true. But what if you don't believe that? What if you fundamentally think that there was racism, but the actual foundation, the founding was not racist? It does not matter because you're in his class and he is purveying to you that the truth is that it is racist. And I've also heard, I was talking to an individual yesterday, we were at an event. She said there's been instances where they have insinuated teachers in the elementary school, another one at Rosemont, that white kids do have privilege, and we have to understand that when dealing with individuals from different races. And one teacher said that if you're a heterosexual male, that you have the most privilege currently in our culture. So the idea is that there is a hierarchy, that the white male is basically the essence of the most privilege, and it kind of goes down, and then the minority group. And yes, it has been pervaded by teachers in the schools, and to the point of, if you're having materials on the District 196 website, if you're having this materials on Eastview High School, Rosemont House School, on Rosemont, they also had, or is it Eastview? They had racial justice, the pursuit of racial justice, and at the bottom of it, it said, "Vote Donald Trump out."
On the high school website.
On the high school, it said, "Vote Donald Trump out." Once again, that's not unbiased, and that's what I'm seeing. It's not unbiased. They're definitely promoting a certain ideology. They're even promoting, obviously, if you vote Donald Trump out, you're voting someone else in. So they're voting a person, political party, a certain ideology. They're voting, breaking down the system. They're marginalizing actually white people based upon a system that they believe is racist. So yes, it is very prevalent in this district as of this time.
So there's a few things there that I was not aware of at all. One, going back to the website, personally, I have a very large family. Most of them are Democrats. Some of them are actually self-proclaimed Democratic socialists. I love them to death. They're my family. I believe I love family. That's fine. And they are allowed to believe in what they believe. I mean, my boyfriend, for instance, this was his first time voting ever, and he was like, "Hey, honey, like I want to learn how to vote." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." You know what he voted for? He voted for Joe Biden. I still love him to death because we're in a very loving, incredible relationship, right?
That's
so it's great. So, but the thing is here is that what I'm getting at is you can have your own personal beliefs. Teachers, students, parents, they can come in, they can have their own political, religious, theological beliefs that they have personally, but they are using school resources like the school website as a political platform. That's my issue. That's my issue with this. Secondly, you're saying that this teacher used school resources to, I don't know where this field trip was or what he did on this field trip, but he used school resources to bring these students to teach a specific political and organizational ideology.
Right.
And the last bit here is something that I was just thinking about just now, actually, is that a lot of this in your explanation seems to kind of create a economic, political, racial caste system.
Yeah.
Because it puts people into categories above another, when, for me, looking at it just on the surface, critical race theory, the goal is to get rid of those things,
Yeah.
is to not have those. So why would they preach, or why would an individual preach a theology, basically, of a caste system that puts a system in place? Because then those individuals that are told or forced into that slot on each level of the ladder are then put into a category. And then they are, I mean, like with any caste system in the history of the world, they go to war with each other. They have political differences, issues, economic issues, community issues. And by putting individuals into that kind of caste system through critical race theory, you're actually causing a lot more issues, because you're pitting people against each other. And in this great country, the whole point is to rise against. You know, my father, he was put in jail when I was 4 years old. He was deported when I was 11. My mother was a single mother. She was a human trafficking victim. My sister has 3 pre-existing conditions. I'm gay, as I said before. I have a boyfriend, so I'm also Jewish. So you're sitting here and you're telling me I am probably at the bottom. I've taken tests before. I've taken, tests online and BuzzFeed tests and whatever, and I'm at the bottom, right, of the underprivileged, non-privileged individual. But I'm an individual that was able to rise against, join the Marine Corps, work for the Obama administration, and then the Trump administration as the chief of personnel administration at Marine One for the Aviation Supply Department. And then it come back to Minnesota, create my own life, have my own world, and work up in this economic system, and to become successful. To go from nothing and then to become successful is everything about this country. And that's everything about critical race theory is against. It's telling me that I can't do it. It's telling me that I was put into a category and that's it. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a category that I have not been able to break out of yet. So that's a huge, I feel like, just mental issue that our students will face when being taught these classes and schools, telling them that they are either nothing or they are either something, and they are evil, they are wrong, and they're just children. These are just kids. They are not our founding fathers. They are not former presidents or former political rallies, and they're kids that are the future of our country, that will hopefully wrong our mistakes, but to tell them that they are everything what's wrong with this country is just damning. And I think that it's incredibly damning to our communities. It could turn kids against each other. It could turn families against each other. And just overall resentment, just like this, an atmosphere of almost like spiritual resentment that could happen in our school system is just, that's really scary to me, actually. So, going off my tangent, I want to kind of move on a little bit to maybe another question. I just want to know, in your opinion, summarizing everything up, what you think the ultimate goal of critical race theory is, and for the school board members and the teachers, preaching it or wanting to implement it. What do you think is the ultimate goal? Why do you think they're doing it?
First of all, cool. I didn't know your testimony like that. So
thanks.
Thanks for all that information, man. That was a great. That's the American dream right there. There's so many layers to it that I could go down. I would say on the fundamental, on the origin level, I think it is to really break down America. It is to break down the systems and make it a totally different society, a society that might appear as if you can create the Marxist utopia that Karl Marx always imagined. And, we always think we can do it better. You've seen it fail so many times, but the arrogance of humanity, the arrogance of man, I'm a Christian, so I believe that man always will mistake his own power. And I believe they think they can implement, they can do it better, and they can create this perfect world where everyone's going to treat each other amazing and everything's going to work perfectly, but it's just a false reality. And to implement it, you can even see on the very core level, like you said, it's divisive. It's saying someone you cannot achieve it on your own. The system has to do it for you. And that on the very origin of it is just very dangerous, and it's very disillusioning to even think about. How I would say the District 196 superintendent school board is looking at it as possibly, we get the funding to start this department, and therefore this is the materials we got to present. But the more nefarious undergirthing of it is a neo-Marxist, you even kind of said it, religion, creating a divisive nature in our schools that ultimately breaks down relations between different ethnicities, different genders, different sexual orientations, and that I fundamentally, on a very fundamental level, is what I think is a scary thing about it. But when you ask me about superintendent school board, I really do think they look more at the money, that money aspect. They may need to get more money to the department, and sometimes might be overlooking what actually they're doing.
I think, unbeknownst to Art or any of the other school board members and the administrators, there are people like you and me, you especially. I don't have children and probably won't for a very long time, but there are parents that are not for this. And if there were resources, if there was more education about it, more coverage about it, I think you would find more parents, because in our district, kids are everything. Our school district is everything in our district. I think you would find that they are against this. When you break it down to the fundamentals, yep. I think you would find that most parents in our school district as a whole would be against this. So, I mean, if you have any final thoughts, I think you just wrapped it up really, really good. This was an incredible topic for me. Awesome. You actually, like, on the fly, I came up with just a lot of my own thoughts and a lot of my own opinions. I definitely have to look into the history more. You bring up Marxism a lot. It's actually really funny because I don't really know the history of Marxism, and I don't know its roots and where it comes from. And I would encourage, and if any other listener on this podcast, I would encourage them to do their own study about this to create their own opinion. But just overall, thank you, Tyler, for joining us today. This just makes me think about a myriad of issues that we face in our community, in our state, beyond the school district, community-wise, economically, politically, that there are issues in institutions. Yep. There are issues that we face. There is corruption. There's corruption in almost every part of government and every part of big money, big corporations and stuff like that. There are issues that we face in our state, in our society. I wouldn't say that critical race theory is one to fix those issues, coming off the topic of what we just talked about. But that kind of begs the question to me, how do we fix these issues? Because they're real. There are underprivileged, undervalued communities that people just bulldoze down. And, they just bulldoze entire homes down. They replace communities. They move communities. They ostracize individuals. They ostracize religions. There are issues. Mm-hmm. But how do we fix those issues? And that is a total different topic for another time. I mean, that is just that's a very huge issue that we could tackle.
I was going to make one final statement just because you kind of broke it down, and you're right, that is enough. I don't think fixing it is to break the whole system down.
Right.
I just do not believe most Americans, if you talk to them on a very personal level, do you believe breaking down the entire system, breaking down our economic system, breaking down our judicial system, breaking down our healthcare system, breaking down our education system that teaches our children, do you believe breaking it down and telling you the children that their color of their skin is ultimately bad for society and that it needs to be changed, that the family unit is bad for society, that the Judeo-Christian values that is the founding of America is bad for a society, that natural law was not sufficient, to tell that to children, to teach that to children, that's not an option. I do agree with you. We do need to fix things, and we need to come together, and we need to honestly unite. Right. What we need to do is unite, not divide.
Divide.
Critical race theory is breaking it down, and the state is pushing it. And you could say as much as it's state-funded, as I mentioned before, it's state-funded racism. And we as a community need to fight against it because it's not a solution. It will only make everything way worse.
And I think you summed it up perfectly. You know, there are issues that we have. We need to find a way to overcome those issues, not divide us. We need to come together, all races, all creeds, all religions, and deal with those specific issues. We can do that together. We don't have to do it with divisive policy that will inevitably break us apart.
Exactly.
So that kind of wraps everything up. I wanted to thank you, Tyler. And please also, I would love to, in the future, have your wife on. She is, and I don't know the organization that you said she started, but she started a local organization of parents, specifically mothers, in our school district that tackles some of these hard issues. So I would love to have her on in the future to talk about some of those hard issues, talk about what she's doing and why she's doing it. I think that would be a wonderful conversation.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for coming. I also want to thank SD57 for supporting this podcast. If you want to get more involved, please go to, I believe, oh man, I can't remember it.
It's SD. You contact us on SD57 GOP. You can also in contact with me, Facebook group Concerned Parents of District 196. So if someone wants to contact me, Concerned Parents of District 196, and if you want to contact our BPOU, SD57 GOP.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. And for all those out listening and everything like that, please comment below, comment your thoughts. If you want to get in contact with this show, if you want to be on, I welcome everyone onto this show. I don't know where you are politically, who you are, and what you believe in. Comment. I want to know. I want to be educated. That is the point of this, is to bring up these issues in our neck of the woods and to truly be uncensored for everyone in our district. So thank you so much, Tyler. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, man.